Local hero rescues family from fire, receives a heartfelt tribute from the town that highlights his selfless acts and courage. A peaceful evening wrapped Willow Creek in a warm embrace, the sun setting gently behind the hills. The air was filled with the sweet scent of blooming flowers, and children played joyfully in their yards. But this tranquility shattered abruptly as a sudden glow flickered on the horizon. Flames danced wildly, licking the sky, and the Cooper family home was engulfed in a fierce blaze. Elias Thorne, a quiet mechanic known for his soft smile and gentle hands, worked late in his small garage. The sounds of laughter outside faded as the shrieks of fear pierced the night. He dropped his tools, heart pounding, as he rushed to the door. "What's happening?" he whispered to himself, dread washing over him. He stepped outside, and the sight before him stole his breath. The Cooper house, once a home filled with life, was now a towering inferno. The smoke twisted and spiraled into the night, and he could hear Barbara's terrified cries mixed with the whimpers of her children, Lucas and Mia. "Help! We're trapped!" Her voice was laced with panic, and it echoed in Elias's mind. Elias's heart raced, a familiar fear clawing at him. Memories flooded back, dark and suffocating. His father's accident, the helplessness he felt as a child. The weight of loss pressed down on him, squeezing out his courage. "I can't," he murmured, frozen in place. What if he failed? What if he never came back? But then, a surge of instinctual bravery pierced through his doubt. The cries of the Cooper family ignited something deep within him, a sense of duty he had never acknowledged. Elias took a deep breath, tasting the acrid smoke in the air. "They need me," he thought, the urgency of the moment galvanizing his resolve. He pushed through his fear, forcing his legs to move as he sprinted toward the flames. "Elias, don't!" a neighbor shouted, but the warning faded into the chaos. The fire blazed fiercely, but all he could think of was the family inside. Each step felt heavy, each second stretched like an eternity. As he approached the front door, a wave of heat crashed against him, threatening to pull him back. But Elias knew he had no choice. He was not just a mechanic, he was a man faced with a choice that would define him. He reached the entrance, and the heat enveloped him. "Barbara!" he yelled, voice strained. "I'm coming in." He pushed the door open, flames licking at his heels. The smoke was thick, a choking cloud that stung his eyes and burned his lungs. "Stay together," he shouted, his voice breaking through the haze. Inside, chaos reigned. Barbara stood in the living room, her face pale with fear, clutching Lucas and Mia close. "Elias," she cried, relief flooding her voice. "Help us." Elias's heart swelled with determination. He could see the fear in the children's eyes, their small bodies trembling with terror. "Follow me, we're getting out," he called, moving quickly through the smoke as he reached for the family. "Where do we go?" Barbara asked, her voice trembling. "Back the way I came. We'll stick together." He guided them through the dark, every step feeling like a battle against the fire that threatened to consume them. Behind him, he heard the creaking of the house, the structure groaning under the stress of the flames. A loud explosion shook the ground, and Elias turned, eyes wide. "Run!" he urged, pushing them forward. The heat intensified, and he could feel the flames reaching out, eager to swallow them whole. Elias fought against the rising tide of panic, focusing on the family in front of him. "You can do this, just keep moving." His voice steadied them, and they pressed on, the exit growing closer with each desperate step. As they neared the door, another explosion rocked the house, sending debris crashing down. Elias turned instinctively, a rush of adrenaline fueling him. "Get down!" he shouted, shielding the Coopers with his body as the world erupted around them. In that breathless moment, time seemed to freeze. Elias felt the weight of their lives in his hands and knew that they were all in this together, bound by fear and hope. As Elias Thorne raced toward the flames, the world around him blurred. The heat from the fire was intense, and the smoke wrapped around him like a thick blanket. He pushed forward, driven by a force he did not fully understand. Memories from his past flooded his mind, reminding him of the lessons he learned as a child. Bravery is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to face it, his mother had said countless times. Her words echoed in his ears, urging him to keep moving. Elias had always been the quiet one in Willow Creek, the man who helped others but never sought praise. He remembered the times he fixed cars for neighbors or helped an elderly woman carry her groceries. Each small act of kindness felt natural, yet he never thought of himself as a hero. "Stay calm, kids. We are going to be okay." Barbara's voice rang out, breaking through the chaos of the fire. Elias pushed through the smoke and flames, his heart racing. He could hear the fear in her voice as she tried to comfort her children, Lucas and Mia, who were huddled together in a corner, their faces streaked with soot and tears. "Mom, I'm scared," Lucas cried, his voice trembling. "Me too," Mia added, clutching her brother tightly. Elias could feel their fear wrapping around him, but he pressed on. The sight of the Cooper family, trapped and terrified, ignited a fire within him, stronger than the one engulfing their home. He reached them and knelt down, forcing himself to be calm. "Listen to me," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos. "I'm here to help you. We need to move quickly, okay? Follow me and stay close." Barbara nodded, her eyes wide with a mix of hope and fear. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking slightly. Elias turned back toward the thick smoke, waving his hand in front of him to clear the air. "Let's go," he urged, leading the way. As they stepped into the smoke-filled hallway, he could hear the roar of the fire behind them. The heat pressed against his skin, but he didn't let it stop him. Each step felt like a battle against the flames. Suddenly, a loud explosion shook the house, rattling the walls and sending a shower of debris raining down. Elias's heart raced as panic surged through him. He turned to the Cooper family, their eyes wide with terror. "Stay close," he shouted, his voice cutting through the noise. "We have to keep moving." They navigated through the smoke, and Elias felt a surge of determination. He thought of his father, who had worked hard to protect their family. "I can't let them down," he thought, feeling the weight of his father's lessons on his shoulders. Elias pushed forward, knowing that every moment counted. At the end of the hallway, he spotted the front door, but the flames danced dangerously close. The heat intensified, and Elias could feel the sweat trickling down his back. "We're almost there," he called back, his voice filled with urgency. "Elias, I can't breathe," Mia cried, her small frame trembling. "Just a little longer," he shouted, reaching out for her. He could see the door now, a glimmer of hope shining through the smoke. He focused on that light, willing himself to reach it. With one last surge of strength, Elias pushed through the final stretch. He grasped the doorknob, his hands shaking. "It's going to be okay," he reassured Barbara and the children as he turned the knob. "We're getting out." The door swung open, and fresh air flooded in, cutting through the smoke like a knife. Elias rushed outside, pulling the Cooper family with him. They stumbled into the cool night, gasping for breath, the sounds of the fire fading away behind them. As they stood outside, the reality of the escape hit them. Barbara wrapped her arms around her children, tears streaming down her face. "We made it. We're safe," she exclaimed, looking at Elias with gratitude. Elias stood a few steps away, his heart still racing. He had faced the flames and saved a family, yet he felt a whirlwind of emotions inside him. Relief washed over him, but so did the weight of what he had just done. He had faced his fears, but the scars of his past still lingered, waiting to be confronted. In that moment, surrounded by the chaos of the fire and the cries of the neighbors, Elias Thorne became more than just a quiet mechanic. He had stepped into the role of a silent hero, though he still struggled to accept that title. Elias moved quickly through the smoke-filled halls, his heart pounding in his chest. The air was thick and hard to breathe, but he focused on the sounds of panic and fear. Barbara's voice reached him, cutting through the chaos. "Elias, this way," she called, her voice shaky but filled with hope. "Keep going," Elias shouted back, his determination shining through the fear surrounding him. He led Barbara, Lucas, and Mia as they stumbled through the darkness, each step feeling like a small victory against the fire that roared around them. The heat was intense, but Elias stayed calm, using every ounce of his strength to guide them to safety. "Mom, I'm scared," Lucas cried, clutching his little sister tightly. "I know, sweetheart," Barbara said, her voice trembling, "but we have to trust Elias. He's going to get us out." Her faith in him pushed Elias forward, fueling his resolve. They reached a narrow hallway, and Elias glanced back, feeling the heat grow stronger. "This way, follow me." He led them down the hall, his mind racing. The sound of crackling flames grew louder, and he knew they had to move faster. Suddenly, a deafening explosion shook the house. The walls trembled, and chunks of debris fell from the ceiling. Elias's instincts kicked in. "Get down," he shouted, throwing his body in front of Barbara and the kids just in time. Dust and splintered wood rained down, but Elias stood firm, protecting them as best he could. "Are you okay?" Barbara gasped, her eyes wide with fear as she checked on her children. "I'm fine," Elias replied, his voice steady despite the chaos. "We just need to keep moving." He could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him, but he pushed it aside. The safety of this family depended on him. They navigated through the wreckage, Elias keeping a steady hand on Barbara's shoulder, guiding her and the children through the maze of smoke and heat. "Just a little further," he urged, his voice cutting through the fear. As they neared the exit, hope flickered in Elias's heart. He could see the outside world, bright and safe, just beyond the door. But before they could reach it, another explosion erupted, shaking the ground beneath them. Elias turned sharply, and his eyes widened in horror as part of the ceiling began to collapse. "Elias!" Barbara screamed, panic rising in her voice. "Stay back!" Elias shouted, instinctively stepping in front of the family once more. He braced himself, ready to shield them from the falling debris. In that split second, he understood the true meaning of sacrifice. His heart raced, but he did not hesitate. With a loud crash, pieces of wood fell, but Elias managed to push Barbara and the children to the side. They stumbled away from the danger, and Elias felt a sharp pain in his arm as a small piece of drywall grazed him. "I'm okay," he called out, though the pain was real. Finally, they reached the doorway. Elias threw open the door, and cool air rushed in, feeling like a lifeline. "Go! Get outside!" he urged, ushering them forward. Lucas and Mia dashed out, and Barbara followed closely behind. Elias stepped out into the open air, taking a moment to catch his breath. The world outside was chaotic, with neighbors shouting and sirens blaring, but for a moment, everything faded away. They stood together in the yard, breathless and shaken. Barbara turned to Elias, tears streaming down her face. Thank you so much," she cried, her voice filled with gratitude and disbelief. Elias felt a warmth in his chest, yet it was mixed with a heavy weight. "I just did what anyone would do," he replied softly, his mind still racing with what had just happened. As the crowd began to gather, murmurs of relief filled the air, but Elias felt a storm of emotions swirling within him. He had saved a family, but the reality of his near-death experience loomed large. The exhilaration of survival battled with the shadows of fear that lingered in the corners of his mind. Elias stood there, a silent hero in the eyes of many, but within his own heart, he was still just a man grappling with the weight of the life he had just fought to protect. In the days that followed the fire, Willow Creek buzzed with talk of the brave mechanic who had saved the Cooper family. Posters adorned the town square, proclaiming Elias Thorne as the silent hero. Yet, amidst the celebrations, Elias felt a growing discomfort. He had acted on instinct, not for recognition. As he walked through the town, people greeted him warmly. "Elias, you're a hero," a neighbor called out, clapping him on the back. Elias offered a shy smile, his heart heavy with mixed feelings. He wanted to disappear into the background, but the spotlight seemed to find him wherever he turned. One afternoon, Barbara approached him in the local diner. She had Lucas and Mia by her side, their faces bright with gratitude. "Elias," she said, her voice steady yet emotional, "we just wanted to thank you again. What you did for us, it means the world." Elias looked down, shuffling his feet. "I just did what anyone would have done," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. Mia stepped forward, clutching a bouquet of flowers. "But you're not just anyone. You saved us." Her eyes sparkled with admiration, and Elias felt a warmth spread through him. Still, he shook his head, unwilling to accept the praise. "Really, it was just luck," he insisted. Barbara placed a hand on his shoulder. "No, Elias, it was bravery. You risked your life for us. That's not luck, that's courage." Elias swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her words. The internal battle within him intensified. How could he be seen as a hero when he felt so ordinary? The accolades sat heavy on his heart, and he felt unworthy of such praise. Later that evening, Elias sat alone in his small workshop, the sounds of tools clinking and the smell of oil filling the air. He thought about the fire, the chaos, and the fear he had faced. He had acted, but what did it even mean? Was he truly a hero, or just a man who had been in the right place at the right time? His thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. It was Barbara, holding a plate of cookies. "I thought you might like some," she said, a warm smile lighting up her face. "Thanks, but I'm not really hungry," Elias replied, trying to sound polite. "Please, just sit with us for a minute," she insisted, stepping inside. The warmth of her presence filled the small space, and he found it hard to refuse. As they sat together, Barbara spoke about the kids' recovery. "Lucas has started drawing again. He draws fire trucks and heroes, and he calls you his hero," she shared, her eyes shining with pride. Elias felt a pang in his heart. "I'm just a guy who happened to be there," he said, his voice faltering. "But you were there when it counted," Barbara pointed out. "You have no idea how much that means to us. You showed us that we're not alone." Elias stared at the floor, wrestling with his feelings. "I don't feel like a hero," he admitted. "I just acted. I was scared too." Barbara leaned closer, her expression earnest. "You showed bravery in a moment of fear. That's what makes someone a hero. It's not about the fame or the glory. It's about the choices we make when it matters." Elias thought about her words. Could it be that heroism was more than just grand gestures? Perhaps it was about connection and the impact one had on others. He felt a flicker of understanding ignite within him. As the days went by, the town continued to honor him, but Elias began to see his actions through a different lens. He realized that while he felt uneasy with the title of hero, the connections he had forged with the Cooper family were what truly mattered. They had all been through a crisis together, and that bond was something special. One evening, as he watched Lucas and Mia play in their yard, he felt a sense of peace settle over him. Maybe he could embrace this new role, not for the spotlight, but for the connections he could build. The thought made him smile, and for the first time since the fire, he felt a glimmer of hope for what lay ahead. As the days turned into weeks, the town of Willow Creek began to heal. The charred remains of the Cooper family home still stood as a reminder of that fateful night. But hope began to rise from the ashes. Elias Thorne found himself drawn to Barbara and her children, Lucas and Mia. They had opened their hearts to him, inviting him into their lives as they embarked on the long journey of recovery. One sunny afternoon, Elias stood outside the temporary shelter where the Coopers were staying. The children were playing in the small yard, their laughter ringing like music. Barbara approached him with a warm smile. "Elias, thank you for coming. The kids have been looking forward to seeing you." Elias nodded, feeling a mix of gratitude and apprehension. "I'm glad to see them happy. They've been through so much." "You've been such a big part of their recovery," Barbara said, her voice soft with sincerity. "We appreciate everything you've done for us." Elias shifted his feet, feeling the weight of her words. "I just did what anyone would have done," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. Barbara smiled knowingly. "You saved us. That means more than you know." As the afternoon sun bathed the yard in a golden glow, Elias watched Lucas and Mia. They were playing tag, their spirits unbroken despite the trauma they had endured. Suddenly, Lucas paused and looked at Elias. "Hey, wanna play with us?" he called out, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. Elias hesitated. He had always kept to himself, avoiding the attention of others. "I don't know how to play," he said, trying to deflect. "Just run, it's fun," Mia chimed in, her voice full of excitement. Elias felt a twinge of something inside him, a longing to connect, to let go of his silence. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward. "All right, I'll give it a try." The children cheered, and soon, Elias found himself racing around the yard, laughter spilling from his lips. For the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of joy. He chased Lucas, who was surprisingly quick, and Mia, who twirled around him like a whirlwind. Their laughter filled the air, pushing aside the shadows that had lingered in Elias's mind. After a long play session, they collapsed onto the grass, breathless and happy. "You're really fast," Lucas exclaimed, grinning widely. "You should play with us every day." Elias chuckled, a genuine smile stretching across his face. "Maybe I will. I think I like this." Barbara watched them from the porch, her heart swelling with gratitude. She approached Elias, her expression warm. "You're doing so much for them, Elias. You're helping them heal, and I think you're healing too." Elias looked down, feeling the weight of her observation. "I don't know if I'm healing, I just feel different." "That's a good thing," Barbara replied gently. "You're facing your fears by being here with us. It takes strength to be vulnerable." Elias pondered her words. He had always seen vulnerability as a weakness, a reminder of his past trauma. But now, surrounded by the Coopers, he began to see it differently. "I guess I never thought of it that way," he admitted. "Sometimes, being a hero means being open to others," Barbara said. "It's okay to lean on us, Elias. We're all in this together." He nodded slowly, the truth of her words sinking in. In that moment, he realized that heroism wasn't just about saving lives in moments of danger. It was also about building connections, sharing burdens, and accepting help when it was offered. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the yard, Elias felt a sense of belonging settle in his heart. The laughter of Lucas and Mia echoed around him, and he knew that he was no longer just a silent observer in the background. He was part of something bigger, a family, a community, and a journey of acceptance and healing. As the seasons slowly changed in Willow Creek, the leaves turned golden and the air grew crisp. Elias Thorne felt a new warmth in his heart, one that came from his growing bond with the Cooper family. They met often, sharing stories and laughter, and each moment strengthened their connection. Elias found comfort in their friendship, and the shadows of his past began to lift. One sunny afternoon, as they gathered in the park, Barbara smiled at Elias. "You know, you really are a part of our family now," she said, her voice filled with sincerity. "We appreciate everything you have done for us." Elias shifted uncomfortably, looking down at the ground. "I just did what anyone would do," he replied, his tone modest. "I was there when it mattered." Lucas, sitting nearby, chimed in with youthful enthusiasm. "But you were the one who saved us. You're our hero." His eyes sparkled as he spoke, clearly proud of Elias. Mia, holding a bouquet of wildflowers she had picked, nodded vigorously. "Yes, you're the best hero, Elias." She beamed at him, her innocence shining through. Elias felt a rush of warmth, but he also felt the weight of their words. "I don't feel like a hero," he confessed quietly. "I just did what I thought was right." Time passed, and as the community healed, Elias began to participate in local events. At first, he stood back, observing from the sidelines. But as he saw the joy and laughter around him, something changed. He wanted to be a part of it. One day, at a community gathering in the town square, Barbara encouraged him to join in. "Come on, Elias, we need your help with the games," she urged, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "It will be fun." Elias hesitated, unsure of himself. "I'm not good at games. I don't want to make a fool of myself," he replied, a hint of anxiety in his voice. You won't, Barbara said firmly. Just be yourself. We all love you for that. With her encouragement, Elias finally agreed. He helped set up the games, and as laughter filled the air, he felt a sense of belonging. The children ran around, and Elias found himself joining in the fun, playing tag and tossing a ball with Lucas and Mia. You're really good at this, Lucas shouted, laughing as he chased Elias. You should be a coach. Elias couldn't help but laugh too. Maybe I should stick to fixing cars instead, he joked back, but deep down, he felt a flicker of joy he hadn't experienced in a long time. The highlight of the day came when the town gathered to share stories. Elias, encouraged by Barbara and the Coopers, finally stepped forward to speak. His heart raced as he faced the crowd, but he took a deep breath and began. I want to share something with you all, he said, his voice steady but soft. I never thought of myself as a hero. I just did what felt right. But what I learned through this experience is that we all have the power to help each other, even in small ways. The crowd listened intently, their eyes fixed on him. Kindness and bravery can come in many forms. It doesn't have to be grand gestures. Sometimes, just being there for someone is enough. Elias continued, feeling more confident with each word. The crowd erupted in applause, and he felt a wave of warmth wash over him. For the first time, he understood the impact of his actions. It wasn't about fame or glory, it was about the connections he made and the hope he ignited in others. As the gathering ended, Barbara approached him, pride shining in her eyes. You did it, Elias. You shared your story. You're a true inspiration, she said, her voice filled with emotion. Elias smiled, feeling lighter than ever. Thank you, Barbara. I couldn't have done it without you and the kids. You've shown me what it means to be part of a community. In that moment, Elias realized he had left a lasting legacy in Willow Creek. He wasn't just the silent hero anymore. He was a beacon of hope, surrounded by friends who cared. And that was more than enough. Share this story if you believe that kindness and connection can heal even the deepest wounds. Leave a comment about a moment when you felt the power of community in your life, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories like this one.